Hello, and welcome to another episode of Scavenger Life. This is episode number 308 at scavengerlife.com.
We are late to be recording this because it's been a very long week for us last week, and the topic of this episode is going to be, how do you people do it? and the people I'm talking about are those of you who have full-time jobs, plus you have one or multiple children, and you sell on eBay. I have no idea how you guys do it, and I'll tell you why we say this. So last week we were in Baltimore doing a job.
Yeah.
And it was just like having a full-time job all over again.
I mean, serious.
Although we were putting in, good 10, 12-hour days. So, a little more hectic than what a normal 9-to-5 job would be. But, we're on point the whole week. And it's super draining. You can tell that I have a cold. I think I got a cold just from being so tired. Oh, I hate it.
I feel like that happens every time we do this job. One of us gets drained.
I mean, and when we would come home to the hotel room from this job, I had zero energy to do anything else. And when people talk about they start packing or they're a listing, incredible. The other thing is we're now in Chicago with my sister. She's my youngest sister.
Yeah. So, hold on though, 1 second. Because we left the job, came straight here. So there's no break in between. So
and my sister has two young kids, one who's 6 and one who's 8.
Yeah.
And we don't have children, and I'm not around children a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just so much crazy energy being around kids. My sister's really good at managing it all, but it's just like right now recording this, the kids are at school. This is the first time it's kind of been quiet in the house for the past 2 days. And again, when we spent all day yesterday, it's with these young kids. I wouldn't have any time to think about running an eBay business. Yeah. Yeah,
it's really funny because we kept saying like we hung out with the kids in the afternoon, your sister and her husband went to go grocery shopping, do errands, whatever, and we're like, oh, we'll just hang out with them. And, the theme was, okay, you guys, we're just chilling out. Yeah. Everybody do their own thing.
Anytime they start getting crazy, I'd be like, okay, we're chilling out.
And it's just so funny because your sister's just like, you guys are all about just, chilling out. We're like, yeah, that literally is true. We work hard, but we're very, we're just working on my own thing, Right. I'm very focused on my own stuff.
And I know that there's a lot of you out there hearing this who, fall into that category. Have a career, have kids. Right. You sell on eBay, and you're probably laughing at us. But again, I do not know how you guys do it. You juggle all of that and, have a smile on your face.
I don't know. I don't know. And the good thing is, for all humanity, there are people who want to have kids.
Yep.
And they have them. Your sister is a natural born mom. She's
she loves
incredible. She loves it. She's just super dedicated and pays attention and is hanging out with her kids. I'm just you're amazing. I'm just gonna go read my phone. Yep. I just want to read my phone.
Yeah. But it is interesting, too. It makes me feel like, those people that still have careers and, we always get people pop up on the forum where they're like, when's the point where I can pull the trigger of quitting my job?
Sure,
and I don't know. I guess it's just whenever you feel like juggling all that is too much and you're willing to take a risk of working for it yourself and getting back some of that time,
Yeah.
Because I could see it where if your kids are old enough and they're going to school all day, they're out by 8, they're home at 3, that would give you a good chunk of time to kind of
and also as they get older, these kids right now are 6 and 8. So it's not like you can be go do your own thing.
It's fart jokes, it's poop jokes. Yeah, butt jokes. Because they're 2 little boys.
That never ends. Right. You're acting like it never ends.
Yeah.
It ends at some point. But I think also just once you're past a certain stage and you're okay, you got to do your homework and you're going to go do this,
But I guess that's a benefit of if you have a job and you have kids, at least when you go to the job, you would hope the job kind of ends when you clock out. You're gone from the office.
And eBay doesn't end.
Yeah,
it's just not ending.
Yeah,
you answer questions, you ship, you list.
Okay, so let's talk about eBay. We obviously did not do anything on eBay this week.
No, except answer questions.
That's a great thing. Even though we would be in the thick of our job, we could always be answering questions,
take offers,
doing counter offers. But the good thing is this is our first time where we now have a helper.
Yes.
And she is back at our home.
Yes.
And she's doing her regular 16 hours. She has access to our home, and we gave her a list of things to do.
Yeah.
Basically boxes of stuff.
It was basically like a stockpile in order. Work on this stuff. She knows what to do. We left little notes if there were particulars that she had to do.
And again, you are very good you're kind of like the boss.
Yeah, it's fun.
And she's texting you if she has questions. She texts me.
If she has a question, she's like, should I do this quantity too or sell them together? And she just texts me and it's perfect. That's all I want, just ask.
And then at the end of each day she works, she sends a very short email that tells us the hours she worked.
And what she did.
And what she accomplished.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get it documented.
Well, and part of that is like, it's not so much to be like, what did you do? I need to keep track. It's about me being able to record her hours. Like, yo, I'm busy. Right. Like, send me an email so I make sure I write down when you work.
No, I think it's very good. We on the other hand, we're renovating this house, and we have a guy who's doing it's woodwork for us, and I did not do a good job getting him to kind of keep us up to date. So
we didn't hear from him.
With him, it's very kind of nebulous what's going on, and I texted him and called him, and we kind of talked, and it turned out he had to do something else.
He wasn't even around.
So I don't even know kind of what he's been doing, and again, it's he's a adult, grown, older man that doesn't want to be told what to do. So I'm like, oh, whatever,
Right, and but it's just tough because it's like two very different things in a way.
Communication's good.
Well, and also a younger person. That our helper is 27, and she's great because we're like, text us, you get it, you know. So.
And we were even talking earlier. It's this morning when we get back.
Yes.
And we'll talk about it. So we've been selling a lot of stuff. We'll have that thing where we have to ship a lot of stuff in a short period of time. And you had the smart idea of having her help you pack. Yeah,
because I was thinking about it. So here's what I pictured when we got home. Me with 52, because right now I have to ship 50 things, and we're halfway through our trip. So I'm thinking it's going to be almost 100. I hope it's 100 things to pack. That's a lot of stuff. And I don't want to be like, okay, we're home on Wednesday. You can't work all week because my office is a nightmare. And I have to ship 3 days straight. I'm like, wait, I'll just get her to help me.
She's just an extension. She's an extension of you.
Here's a bunch of clothes. Here's the invoices. Put them in the poly mailers. Label it. Tell me, let's work together. I'll print the labels. You put them out. just. But
I also love the idea of we're kind of prepping her for possibly
training,
shipping for us.
Yeah.
Completely when we're actually out of town.
Exactly.
If we can get an organized inventory system.
Yeah, that's the key. Because right now it's like no one else but us can find anything.
Right.
But that problem can be solved with organization.
This week we did not scavenge, obviously. Although when we would go out at night to get something to eat, we still couldn't help but when we're walking down the street, go through the trash.
Find stuff. Yeah.
There were a couple times where I was like, ooh, let's bring this home. I was like,
oh my God. If we had a car.
Yeah.
We were walking by this one apartment building, and there was construction stuff in the trash, and there were these beautiful porcelain tiles. Some were cut, but some were just left over. We didn't use these. I was like, oh.
And quite a bit of it.
Quite a few.
It would have been for a whole bathroom.
I was like, I really want that. You can't ship that home. They were too heavy, but.
So it's no scavenging, no listing, none of that.
Just pure other work.
I did see, and I'll link to it on on this podcast, there was a good article about it's shopping at the Goodwill Outlet.
Oh, like the bulk?
Kind of like, for those of us, is like, this is old news for any of us. But it's funny to see these stories in the mainstream press.
Right.
And to see how mainstream press is explaining how this works. So this happens to be a Goodwill Outlet, I think in Queens, it's New York.
Oh, I bet some people on this podcast have been there.
Yeah, and they talk about, the way that they talk about it is it's like mainly immigrants, and they're, and we've seen this when we've been to these places where they like stake out certain areas.
Don't go near their territory or you get in trouble.
It's funny though, they were asking these people where they sell, and I don't know if they weren't being fully forthcoming, but no one said they sell online on eBay. A lot of them were saying they were sending stuff home or selling stuff, I guess, maybe on Craigslist. So maybe it could be that
maybe
thing.
It is. The city people are just like...
Yeah, or maybe it's that thing where it's an all-cash business where they buy it and then they sell it on the street or to people in their community. Do a stoop sale or whatever.
Yeah. They could very well. The thing about the city, because we live in rural America... You can have a yard sale, but not like in Queens or Brooklyn. You can seriously sell stuff on your front stoop every weekend in the summer. True. Your neighbors might not like you, but still.
So let's talk about a week. Before we left on this trip, we changed our handling time
to 15 business days.
So 15 business days. So if we don't count the weekends, that's over 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, we did see a drop in sales at the beginning of our trip, but then things kind of picked up. So we sold 50 items.
Yes.
Last week, and we made about $1,900 on our main store. So that's what I want. Good for us. Then in our second store, we saw a big drop. We only sold 6 items for $130.
Yeah.
So low. It's what it is.
Now the thing about handling time too is it kind of stinks with eBay where they have. It goes 30, 20, 15, 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Right, like we wish, and this is probably just how they have their database constructed. Yeah. We would love to say we're going to ship on May 13th, and it just dynamically changes the handling time as the day gets closer.
Which would be so helpful because now... Every increment of time that they have, I have to go in and change it again. Right. So on last Friday, I was like, I gotta change these all the 10 business days, and it took me so long. And your solution is brilliant. Say the day you're gonna ship. Right. It's this day,
and then just it dynamically changes as you get closer to that day.
Instead of me changing the handling time every time.
And what we're talking about is obviously you have to go into the bulk editor. We have over 5,000 items, and so you have to go, 500 at a time. You can't even go in and say, put 10 business days on everything, one button.
It's so annoying.
So what people will say is, and eBay might say is, well,
yeah, they will.
If you use the business policies, it's more dynamic, I guess.
What it is, here's the deal. If you sell iPhone cases, you just have one set of shipping rules. You're just like, these are my rules for every listing I ever do. And I don't have that because I sell weird stuff. Right. I could have a set of shipping rules, but I'm just like, ugh.
But then it gets complicated.
It's just like, that's not how I started doing it. It's not how I do it. I do it dynamically as I'm listing stuff. Like, our helper will sometimes have a box of like, here's a pillow. Here's a cheese grater. Right. Here's a tie. So I can't just be like, just put this business policy. It's like, dude, this is first class. This is parcel. This is ba. She knows what to do now. But, so it's tough because that it really does stink to change handling time. Yeah. Like, it took me a while. Right. And it gives you...
half an hour, so, right?
Half an hour plus, because now we have the second store that has 1,000 items. Right. 1,300
And so, we're not being babies about it. We do it, and it allows us to keep...
Right, we do it.
Selling items.
It could be more efficient, is all I'm saying.
And I will... It's remind people, so we always... so that way the business... The time, shipping time is changed, so when a person buys an item, it tells them it's going to come after this date. And then we also send a message to people. Right. And so this time we've actually had 3 or 4 people
need stuff.
Write us say, "Oh, thanks for it's a reminder. I need it." So we would cancel the item.
One was a graduation gown.
Right.
So that's obviously he's like, I need this for next week because I'm actually graduating.
There was one guy who was like, "Oh, I need it quick," and we were like, "Well, what if we ship it free shipping?"
And he was like, "Okay, cool. I don't need it as quick anymore." Yeah. So, okay.
Not everyone needs everything right away, and if they do, they can change their mind. Things we sold. We sold a farmhouse table.
Yeah, no, so this is interesting. This was a surprise sale. We had bought a table a couple years ago, and we just had this idea, we're going to use it on the front porch. And then the front porch became storage, frankly.
We had this idea that we'd be eating on our covered front porch and look at the trees and hear the birds, and it suddenly just became, now it's all just full of eBay stuff.
Yeah, it's just storage. And the cats like to hang out there. So we were looking at it and it's taking up all this space, and I'm like, I'm putting it on Craigslist for more than we bought it for, and I'm putting it on eBay just to see who's going to do it. This guy messages us on Craigslist, but we are traveling and in the middle of this job, so I didn't really see that for a couple hours later. And he messaged us on eBay if we would do a better price. Same guy. And then he just bought it outright. Right. He obviously wanted it.
So we weren't playing any kind of games. We were just busy. And every hour he would send us a new offer, and he kept upping it until he just bought it outright. So he actually bought it on eBay. It was weird. He started on Craigslist. I guess he found it on eBay, and he bought it a local pickup.
Yeah, he did local pickup.
And because we aren't there, I just arranged it with our helper over text to meet him at a certain time.
And the hilarious thing was, since it is storage, there was a bunch of stuff on that table. I'm like, oh no. And you're like, let's just tell her, just clear the stuff off, help him get it out of the porch. And it was fine. It's a lightweight table.
But that's a good example of, if you don't use stuff, just sell it, and that's what we do. So we had this table. We didn't use it for a couple of years. We just decided, why keep this thing?
Just sell it.
So we bought it for $200, sold it for $340.
We made money on that.
And now it's more room. Yeah. We also sold this is stuff I love. 2 paper clips, what are they? Like those little binder clips?
They're just vintage. Yeah, they're clips. They're just desk
2
clips.
Small, the size of your thumb, that clip on paper, but they're from the 30s.
Yeah, they're from the 30s or 40s.
They look real cool, and they sold for $25.
I think we mentioned that before because I've had those before.
We sold an old sign, a rusty, it said Old Springs or something.
Yeah, it looks like it's an old farm sign or something. It's funny. I sold it before. They never paid. It really sucked. I was like, I can't wait to get this thing out of storage because it's huge.
So it sold for $120.
That's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
And and I know some people really get into signs and they specialize in them, and they get beer signs and gas station signs, and they sell for hundreds and
sometimes
hundreds.
Thousands.
Yeah, so good for them. This is just, it's one of those things I found.
We got it for cheap, so we were happy.
I mentioned last week that we were at a thrift store, and they were giving away all these hymnals in boxes, and I took 30 of them.
Yeah.
And we've sold 5 of them for $15 each.
And it's funny, they all were selling at the same... they sell in weird groups. One will sell and then 2 more will sell. It's just great.
And someone on the forum said, if you're a
Methodist?
A Lutheran or a Methodist, they changed it. They changed the hymnal at some point, and so people love the old ones. These were Baptist hymnals? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hymnals do well.
Yeah.
We also sold a T-shirt. We love to buy... recently, we've been buying T-shirts for $1. And this is one that sold for $90.
I'll tell you why. Because it was a Patagonia shirt. So I thought, there are people who are into Patagonia. It had a funny logo thing on it.
It was like a Sasquatch, right?
Sasquatch, Bigfoot guy. It was wacky, one of those things. So I actually found out it's by this artist that's a skater, surfer type artist guy. And the funny thing was, I could not find any information on this shirt. There was one post on the internet saying, hey, this guy made this shirt for Patagonia. I was like, I'm putting $100 on it because I can't find it anywhere. And it sold within like 3 days.
Right. And so I bet someone's going to write us and say, you could have sold that shirt for $1,000.
I think that's a little crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. We were just happy. It's one of those items that is tough to price because there is no history.
There's no comparison.
It's like you said, is you found one link that just talked about it.
In like one sentence.
But there was no anything
nothing
about it.
Nothing on Patagonia, nothing. So I was just like...
We put the price at, and we feel comfortable, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
We sold a prom photo, like a 1960s.
No, 1940s.
And it sold for $20, but the cool thing is it was bought by a collector.
Yes. So I loved this photo. It was someone who was like a little older than my mom. In the 40s, like she's got this prom dress, she's got this great smile, and it was bought by a collector in New York because he had an address that I was like, that's somebody, because that is an expensive address in the Lower East Side. And so I looked it up, and it's this guy who collects like old Americana snapshots, which is exactly what this is. And what I need to do, I think I wrote to him. I was like, I have all these other ones too if you're interested. He didn't write back, but that's fine.
It's just one of those cool sales where not only do we make a bit of cash, it
goes to the right person.
It's just nice to feel like we're part of like an ecology where like things are being savored and shared.
Well, and the other thing too is I saw that photo and thought of someone like him, who's like, these are the kinds of photos I look for. Americana mid-century snapshots. And I was like, that's a beautiful one. And I was right.
Okay, customer issues. Like we said, we had to cancel some of the purchases because they just couldn't wait for our long
normal
handling time. It happens. We always say it's like 1 in 10. So we had 3 out of it's 50 items. So that's good.
Yeah.
Now, we did close a couple of returns.
Yes.
Because people opened up a return case. We accepted it.
Yeah.
They didn't ship it. And then you closed it.
Yeah. The only issue was, I had to call during this other job. So it was a little bit hard to be like, I got to call. But I will say this. There was one day where I was so busy, but I really wanted to get this return closed because I was just like, this has to get done. And I emailed Anchor support, and they actually did it over email because I was like, I literally have not a minute to call. So that was cool.
So this is the weird thing. We're in the beta program, the return beta program. So a woman returned an item that said she didn't like the color, and she blamed us. So we just accept its return. Right. We get it, and then we contacted eBay and said, this is obviously buyer's
remorse. Yeah,
it's remorse because they can't send it back because of a color. Because as she says, it wasn't white; it was a natural color.
It was off-white, and I'm like, lady.
So eBay sided it with us and closed the case in our favor. Then I guess she called back, and got that it reversed. And
which is what's so crazy about the beta program.
Right. And then we call again.
And get it reversed.
And eBay says, oh yeah, they can't do that. So they reverse it again.
But here's my... Okay, sorry.
So what it looks like is, at this point, eBay is just making everyone happy. So according to the buyer, she got all of her money back, including its shipping costs. We got our shipping costs, and we just, did the refund. And so it's strange. It feels like eBay's just eating that loss when you take it that far.
That's what it sounds like to me. So that's what's crazy to me, is that the buyer thinks what they did is acceptable. So they're going to keep doing that. That's the problem to me.
Right.
She returned it for color, blamed me, got all her money back, and she's like, oh, I won the case. And you're like, you didn't really, but you don't know
and
that.
I know people that sell on Amazon are like, well, that's just the way it is. Like,
yeah,
you just got to eat it. And, I'm glad...
Sucks to sell on Amazon.
I'm glad that eBay allows this back and forth and, understands that there has to be a line,
But how long will they allow that? Yeah. That's my question. I just think it's... Like we said, it's a beta program, so you're like, how are they even going to accept this for everyone else? I don't know.
Yeah.
But for now, I love it because I'm like, I'm correct, you know?
Just because it feels fair.
It feels fair to sellers.
Yeah, I mean...
You know, when buyers are like, you measured this wrong, and then you get it back and measure it, and you're like, no, I didn't. You just didn't want to pay shipping back to me because you're mad that it doesn't fit.
Right.
You know?
Okay, so things we learned in the forum. There were a lot of messages going on that we just couldn't keep up with, and it was cool.
Which is amazing.
People were just kind of talking to each other, which is great. There was one good thread that I finally got into where basically the guy was saying, if I can make, $1,000 on 50 items, well, what happens then? Obviously, I just need to sell 100 items, and then I'm going to make X amount of dollars. You know, bringing that kind of mindset of kind of like the spreadsheet is mindset to something I think is more of like an art form.
Yes.
You know, if you're not selling commodity items and if you're selling more vintagey, one of a kind, long tail items, it's hard to do that. And here's why. Sometimes you can create your own glut. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where, yes, you might be able to sell 10 typewriters, but you can't extrapolate, well, then if I list 100 typewriters, I'll sell 100. Because there's only so many typewriters that are going to get bought. And
there's only so big a market.
And I think that's the same thing for even Coca-Cola. I mean, like Coca-Cola, they always fight against, like, they just can't sell any more of it. Like, that's why they're spending billions of dollars on advertising trying to get people to want Coke. But at some point, just no one else wants to buy Coca-Cola.
Well, that's why they sell water.
Right.
And sell
orange juice, right.
And, they're like
they diversify, right.
In 1920, they realized, oops.
And I think that's something we, the two of us have had to figure out, is we've done that same thing too. Like, oh my God, we sold some paper clips for $25.
Let's get paper clips forever.
Let's only buy paper clips and we'll make $25 on each pair. And we realize, we just found the one person that was willing to pay $25
for the two people ever that. But the other thing too is I'll look at people's numbers because so many people post their numbers, and I'll see someone who's like, I have 200 items. I made $2,000. I'm like, what? How did you? I have 6,000 items and I made the same amount as you this week. Yeah. How can I don't know how to answer that.
Right.
And then, it goes back and forth. So,
I love when people come and they want to really kind of get scientific about it. And I love that because...
Yeah, you're scientific
especially,
about it too.
Especially if you're trying to decide whether or not to go full-time or, it's good because it gives you some amount of stability.
Right.
But
sure.
At the end of the day, I really feel like selling like we do on eBay is more of a creative endeavor because you really have to think outside the box as to what people are buying, doing a research, putting things in the proper context versus like just finding a wholesaler in China and being like, okay, let's buy 1,000 of these
private label
pieces and they'll sell for, we'll make $3 on each piece.
Look,
and,
I was saying this before. I'm reading The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I feel like I need to put it down because it's boring me. Although the funny thing is, like, he wrote it in 2007, so it's 10 years old. So things are obviously different now.
It's created this kind of like, this kind of sub genre of like, working for it yourself.
And a huge part of what he talks about, like I got into the middle of the book and I was like, oh, he's basically saying you got to become an Amazon white label, like sell a cog, basically sell iPhone cases. Like that's his deal. And, to me, I understand his principle of like have a business that runs itself so that you can do other things. I'm like, okay, I get that, But for me, I'm like, that's so boring. It's so boring.
Right. His thing was he basically bought...
dietary supplements.
Right.
He sold some dietary supplements that he was like, it's for brain enhancement. And then he basically admits that that's bull.
And built a marketing thing around it.
Yeah.
And, and it's interesting too, like, the kind of new shtick is if you create a business, like an online business, and you can prove it has a history of sales, then you sell the business. And that's like the end game.
Right. The end game is not like, make some cool products.
So, like, I was reading one blog where this guy was like, I started a website to sell RC cars. RC,
race cars.
It's controlled cars.
Yeah.
And, he put all of his time and money into the marketing and getting the AdWords and getting up in the ranks.
Yeah.
And then he got it to where it was popular enough and then sold that business. Right. And then, so he's like, I'm a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
I just think it's like a different thing than what we're trying to do.
It feels very different.
I think the other thing too is I find that there are a lot of these blogs about like how to get rich. Yeah. And they're written by people that are kind of already rich.
Yeah.
So they're kind of telling the story way after the fact.
Right.
Even like it's Mr. Money at Mustache, who I really like. Yeah. He started the blog after he had already saved up all of his money and was it's retired, and so he's kind of telling you the story after it's all done.
Right.
And I think
he's not showing the process.
Yeah.
We're in the process.
And so I think for us it's like when I try, and I guess I can't help but compare ourselves. Like, I'm not saying we're trying to get rich, we're just trying to get like stable and comfortable and on our time. Like, we started this kind of in the beginning. So
Right, that's true.
I guess we're kind of showing, I guess if any of those guys started their blogs earlier, hopefully it would be a lot uglier and it's messier than the way that they tell the story now.
Are you saying we're messy? No, I think just like there's like this mentality of like soullessness. Like, I didn't think that Tim Ferriss was like that, but I was like, literally, I think I have to put this book down because I'm just like, ew, 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 ew. Like, I don't want to have things that aren't interesting to me. He's basically like, he literally in his book is like, pick anything, just research it and pick anything. And I'm like, what kind of soulless life is that? That sounds horrible.
Well, yeah, it's just, I guess, again, it's like the difference between, if you see the business as just kind of like a spreadsheet.
Yes, exactly.
It's business where you just like plug some numbers in, and if the numbers work, you're good. It does not matter what it is.
It doesn't matter what you're selling.
I don't know. The way we're doing it, where it's more of a creative process, and it's messy, it's
not
confusing.
Perfect, and it changes, and you're like, wow, we made $800 this week. That sucks really bad, It's not like...
we made 3,000. I don't know.
Right, exactly.
So it's just different, and each of us just have to choose, what way makes sense,
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other thing that was interesting was someone came on and asked, like, when do you give a discount to...
That's a very...
Like a partial refund to a buyer. Because, we all have these buyers.
Yes.
They say, oh, I just got the item. It's great, but there's one thing... And they may even ask, can I get a discount or a partial refund? And when you just say, just take $10 and let's be done.
So let me just explain this one. She sent her a new in-box frying pan, like a nonstick pan, and the lady pointed out the tiniest scratch on the bottom. And you're like, for me, when someone does something like that, they're fishing for money back because 10 out of 20 sellers will say, oh, okay, sorry, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I mean, as we talked about, it's just a choice. If you want the problem to go away, you can just say, here's $10 and be done with it. If you feel like that's going to keep you up at night, what we'd say is, send it back. And eat the cost to ship it. And we've done that. It's before. They get a full refund. That makes eBay happy. And but the thing is, very often what happens is if you call their bluff, they really want to keep the item.
Back.
And so they'll just keep the item. And then if they complain, you just call eBay and see, like, look, I offered them a full refund and they didn't want to take that. So
the key here, like you said, is you're calling their bluff. Most of the time, 75% of the time, they actually want the item. They just don't want to pay so much for it.
Now, there are times where we sold something where, like, we're like, I don't want to try and sell that again, and so we will just eat the $10 or however much we give a refund. Like we've done that other times.
I mean, those are items where you're like, I don't want it back. I don't want to deal with it. So yeah, it's just his choice every time, honestly.
Okay, our coming week is basically, we're in Chicago. I know we've gotten a handful of messages from people wanting to meet up, but
we are in family mode.
We're kind of here to be with my family. My sister I haven't seen in a long time. It's with her kids, so we're here to kind of just be with them. Yeah. But anyway, we're gonna go to the aquarium.
Yay!
We're going to take a tour of the Frank Lloyd Wright...
Home and Studio.
Yeah, Home and Studio.
Very nerdy. Both of those are super nerdy and fun.
And then we're just going to relax. And then on Thursday, we fly to Bellingham in Washington. And we have another 4-day, very intense job before we go home. And then we're home all summertime.
I am so happy.
I love that.
Yeah, I really want to be home.
So we've already been making a list, or at least I have, a list of stuff to do when we get home.
I want to think about shipping everything and listing everything that she did while I was away first. True. And then I can... You do other things, I'll do that.
Hey, Jay and Ryan. This is Tracy from Florida. And I just discovered your podcast a couple of weeks ago through a Facebook page with Reezy Resells, and I am an eBayer, not an Amazon seller. And so I was so overjoyed to discover you guys, and I appreciate everything you do. And I have learned so much by listening to you guys while I work my house cleaning business. And so I'm starting eBay on the side. I did it in 2004 for about a year and a half, and then life got in the way, and so I'm back at it again. And I have a few questions because I'm kind of new back to eBay, but the number one thing is the global shipping. And I am scared to ship outside of the U.S. because I know it can be a huge headache. And so is there a place I could go, or maybe you guys can talk about the ins and outs of global shipping, the goods and the bads? I would love to hear more about that, and if it's worth adding to my eBay experience. And right now we're selling a lot of new things, my husband and I, and new shoes and new items that we find in stores. And then we're adding some stuff we find in thrift stores just within the last couple of weeks. And it's exciting to see those things sell. Anyways, I am enjoying the journey, and it's always more fun along with both of you. And I appreciate everything you do. And I can't wait to hear your answer to global shipping. Thanks so much. Bye.
Yes, you should never be afraid to ship overseas. There's nothing to be afraid of, especially through global shipping, because here's the deal. You ship to Kentucky, and that's all you're responsible for. If something gets lost going to England, etc., that's on eBay. If something gets damaged on the way to England, that's on eBay.
And yes, it does cost the buyer more upfront. Because what they're doing is they're paying for their country's customs and all those fees up front, instead of they pay you to ship it, and then when it gets to the post office, they then have to pay another fee.
Yeah, depending on the country.
And whatever. So people say, well, if you do it that way, you're going to lose sales, but you're going to lose sales anyway if you don't even sell overseas.
Right. So my advice is this. Just sell through global shipping. Start with that. I sell any country in the world. I don't care. I'll ship it. I'll insure it. It doesn't matter to me. But if you just want to do global shipping and nothing outside of global shipping, what countries that covers, just do that. Just start with that. It's so easy. I totally love it.
We also noticed too that global shipping seems to have expanded recently.
Yes, I've sold to people in China, Thailand, Russia in the last month.
And those, for a long time, were not covered under the global shipping program. And that's huge,
because I used to sell so much stuff to Russia and a handful of things to China, and eBay's smart because there are so many people in China, and a lot of people have money over there. So you're like, I want to sell to those people.
And then finally, I will say that in the past 6 years since we started doing this overseas, 8 years, you can now put insurance on almost anything.
Almost anything.
So even if you want to ship, whatever, first class just on it's your own, you can do
Yeah,
insurance with Ship Saver, right?
Someone's in France and they're like, I want to do first class. You're like, fine, and then I do Ship Saver because they'll cover France. Just check the countries on Ship Saver because they will not do Brazil, they will not do certain places in South America, and that's just the way it is.
Hi guys, this is Kara from Lexington, Kentucky, and I just listened to your most recent episode, and I couldn't help myself but call in because I sell a lot of equestrian equipment, saddles, horse stuff. I actually teach horseback riding. Freelance is kind of the other part of what I do other than selling on eBay. So when you guys are talking about youth saddles, that usually tends to refer to it being like a starter saddle, which is why you're not getting a lot of money out of them. Someone gave me a bunch a while ago, and I was selling them off for about $20 to $80 a piece. But saddles are kind of like shoes. They can be worth thousands and thousands of dollars, or they can be worth very little. It just kind of depends on the brand and the quality, similar to like designer items. So if you ever come across one, things that you can look at are the quality of the leather, if it's like soft and buttery, or better yet, if it's like textured. Those tend to be higher quality saddles. You can always do a quick search of the brand because there are a lot of really great saddles out there that are kind of lesser known brands that you won't get quite as much money out of. But I sell tons. Other things to look at are under the flap. There are straps called billets. And if those are in really poor shape, that would be something that would need to be replaced, hopefully by the buyer, but that can kind of change your price point a little bit too if those need to be replaced. They're about $100, give or take, to replace. But anyway, I'm kind of a horse nerd, so I just couldn't help myself but call in. Oh, and to answer Jay's question, yeah, there are guys that ride. It's very female dominated in the lower levels, but then as you get to the upper levels, you'll see a lot more professional riders that are men. So I think men are built better for riding, unfortunately, but not a lot of them stick with it because it is such a female dominated field, but those that do tend to do really well. So anyway, hope that helps. Thanks for all you guys do.
Yeah, I think that should have been obvious to us that there's levels of quality.
So she's talking about how last week we talked about we had bought 4 saddles, young people saddles from a yard sale like a year ago, and we finally sold one at like a fraction of the cost we had originally put it up at. And it was just an example of an experiment. We were at a yard sale. I offered this woman $100 for 4 of them. We sold one for $80. So
it's not bad, but I want them to go fast.
But like, we don't know anything about them. But I'm like, man, these are like a leather. They look nice, but I don't know anything about them, and so we're getting schooled. Obviously, that like.
Well, and we've sold adult saddles that were obviously of a higher quality for like $400. Yeah. So I'm like, any saddle will do.
So it's good. Yeah, we love, now I will know when I see a saddle, being sold, I can start looking at those kind of things, like what quality is this in, and that in, and what name is on it, or
they were clearly youth starter saddles, and we knew it because it was a mom selling them. So now we know those might not be the ones to get. An adult saddle is we probably won't get them because people want too much for them anyway. So. Okay, that's it for the podcast this week. You can check out our blog at scavengerlife.com for the links we discuss and to join the conversation on the forum. As always, you can call and leave a question or a comment on our voicemail line. The phone number is 540-407-8486. We post an episode every Monday morning. On Wednesday, we post a What Sells video to show you what sold and how much it sold for, currently being brought to you by Steven Schultz and his doggies. You can subscribe to us through iTunes or YouTube so you always get the latest episode. You can listen to our other podcast, shampooandbooze.com. We recently did an update over there, and you can rent our vacation farmhouse. We recently had some scavengers stay there, and it was awesome, and they left us some great feedback, so we love it. And we're ending this podcast in 3,
2, 1.
Echoey room.